Is it? Checking my phone. No. 629. 629.
You're on a different photo.
No. I started recording now.
We'll call the meeting to order. The City Commissioner of Big Rapids. Tammy, the roll call, please.
Cochran. Here. Epley.
Here.
Gunther.
Here.
Johnson. Here. Simmons. Here.
Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mark, the agenda, any additions, corrections?
You have some amended information at your table, but nothing different from that.
Thank you. No special orders. Study session, there are 4. The first are our guests from the Housing Commission, the soon retiring Mark Sahaki, and the new leader, Linda Miller, will talk to us.
I'm just here for moral support, Mayor.
He said he might let me talk.
So, are we done? IT down? We're done. I have those paper copies on
Paper
the
one.
Just people want.
Anybody want to do that?
Oh, just the commission. Just, okay. Oh, good. So,
How's the slideshow coming, Mark?
we worked hard on this.
Keep stealing at my slideshow
Yeah.
for another presentation tomorrow. I said, who said you could have my slideshow?
So, we just wanted to give you an update on the progress on Mechanic Street. So, we are just kind of an overview. We're reviewing proposals from builders right now to build 5 houses. So that decision will be made this Thursday. So we'll have a builder pick. We have 4 proposals, 4 different builders, which is good. There was a lot of interest in the process. So we're building 5 stick built, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some modular houses that we proposed for the other 5. So the first thing we want to do is talk about this missing middle grant that we received. And I'm going to let Linda talk a little bit about it, but first I'm going to give her a lot of credit because Linda wrote this grant. We were the first applicant in to the state of Michigan for this funding, and we debugged their system because they sent it out, the online system, and Linda can tell you there was a lot of things that weren't performing properly, and so she went in and alerted them so they could fix it so we could get our application in like the minute the application system opened up. So we were the first award too as well in that first group of awardees. So then we'll talk a little bit about.
You gave me the one to remember. So, missing middle grant. Last time we were here, we had applied for it. We had not heard back yet. We did receive the award back in December. 5 houses, $362,500. So it's $72,500 per house. So it's kind of a gap funding, and the work has to start by June 12th, which it will because we are awarding the project on Thursday. It's a pilot program, and they've already changed the rules on us a couple times, but to our favor, they are increasing the income limit for the home buyers, which is a good thing. And there was kind of a compliance period that only income qualified people could live in the houses for 10 years, and they've now reduced that to 5 years. So that's a good thing too. So we are all set to go with that program. We signed the loan documents with Isabel Bank, and we are excited to get started. I think if you look in your packet, we have a sample house plan, exterior and interior, with a black border on it. This is what we bid out. So, and the plan is they will not all look the same. So they'll have the same footprint, but they will look different on the exterior. So.
Did you get bids from all local bidders?
We did. Yep.
Oh, well,
bidders, because they're not the old.
Yeah, nobody, they're all local home builders. Yeah.
Now, does this get paid back by the new homeowner, or is it straight cash money to
No,
bottom
so,
line.
Mayor, the first 5 stick-built houses, this $72,000 is construction money, so we're gonna lower the cost of the house, not by $72,000, because we have some costs associated with building, some construction loan stuff, but our goal is to make that home as affordable as we can. So we don't know what that end number is gonna be yet, but my guess is it's gonna be like $225,000.
The homeowner doesn't have to pay that back.
No, they just have to make sure, there'll be a deed restriction.
Yeah.
This has changed a couple times, so
Yeah.
it could change again. At one point, they were talking second mortgage, but now they're calling it a deed restriction, that if they sell it within 5 years, they have to make sure they sell it to an income qualified. So, but 5 years is not as long as 10 years, so we think that's good news, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they have to be mortgageable, the buyers, so conventional mortgage, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
So.
We've got some interior photos, some sample interior photos. And then that brings me to the, so about 3 weeks ago, I was running around like a crazy person because I found out about 2 additional grants that could possibly work on Mechanic Street. And I went to a Zoom meeting trying to figure out which one I was going to apply for. And they started off by saying the Mishta Mod grant for 4 modulars. And I immediately perked my ears up because I want, housing on Mechanic Street. That they were only awarding 1 grant for $1 million. And I'm thinking, 1 grant for the whole state. I don't know if I want to apply for this. And then they said, no, you need to apply for this, Big Rapids. You need to apply for this. So I applied for that. It was due the same day as another grant for even more housing. So I applied for the Mishta Mod 2023 grant, $1 million for 4 modulars. These homes will be, the income limit is 120% of area median income, but it includes down payment assistance of $10,000. And as part of that grant application, I received letters of support from not only the city, which I didn't put in my PowerPoint, but from Ferris, Big Rapids Products, Federal Screw, and Michigan Works, all supporting workforce housing. So I'm going to a conference tomorrow, and hopefully I will get an update from some Mishta folks there on our application. The second grant I applied for is the Mishta Investing in Community Housing Grant, which is 4 homes, which can be either stick-built or modular. So it's $100,000 per house. The good thing about this grant is there are no income restrictions because we're in a qualified census tract. So we don't know if we'll get one of them or both of them. I doubt we'll get both of them, but we're excited about the opportunity to come. So.
And then we should note too that we've secured a loan from the Fremont Area Community Foundation as a backup plan if this doesn't come. So they've already awarded that to us to build the next 5, and we thought those were going to be modulars.
Yeah.
So
And on the page, I don't know if you can tell. Oh, go ahead, Jennifer.
Quick question.
Sure.
Can you tell me what one house must be visitable?
Yeah, 1 house must be visitable, no steps. So 1 entry has to have 0 steps. So whether that's the front, the back, or coming in from the garage is kind of what we've been talking about in-house.
Okay.
So,
The peculiar way it says inaccessible is visitable.
right. It's a little bit different than accessible, but I did also want to point out on this page, the sample modulars page, the lots are fairly narrow at Mechanic Street, and so these are samples of narrow house plans, and they all have not plain Jane fronts on them. So I know there's been some interest on that, so I just wanted to point that out.
we're not looking at anybody in particular, by the way.
I'm looking-
Say that.
And then, does anybody have any other questions so far? Lastly, I think, did you want to talk
Yeah,
about
I'll
this?
talk about this.
All right.
So the last part, the piece is, we've asked the county, and I think there's a county commissioner here tonight too. So if you know any county commissioners, we submitted a proposal for the marijuana money for additional down payment assistance for $100,000 that we would attach as a second mortgage, like the county had did with their rehab program, and that is a due up on sale clause, so it just gets recycled, so we come back, and every time we had a home buyer, because remember, there's 84 more lots to develop, so.
Well, I think building costs are up, which is what we're finding from the 4 quotes that we got. So anything that we can do to help make these houses more affordable. We're also looking, working with Consumers Energy and DTE, to see if there are any incentives or rebates available, for the new construction that we would then pass on to the home buyers as well. So we've got this down payment assistance incentive. Fremont Area Community Foundation has offered some down payment assistance as well, so.
Have you heard from any citizens about, I hear you're doing 10 homes, and we'd like to be in the running? Have you heard anything?
Yeah, just good things.
Yeah.
You know, it's about time somebody's doing it.
But nothing where some person came to you and said, we're gonna be interested in one of these homes.
I have a short list on
Yeah.
my desk.
Do you?
from
Yeah.
people
So there are
that
people
called.
calling
Yeah,
in?
I'm keeping a list of names and phone numbers. Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a good point, we wanted to talk about our marketing strategy too. So, we're gonna develop a website. We met a developer lady that had a good website, and we kind of were borrowing and looking at some of the things that she had done. And, so we're gonna do some direct marketing. We're gonna try to keep the houses low, maybe avoid some the realtor fees for now if we can, because that would add a significant, additional cost to the properties, so, but that's where we're gonna start. And, you know, you can see that we've explored partnerships, I mean, with the city, investing in it. There's not communities doing this, and they're screaming for housing. You guys said, we're gonna start this, we wanna keep this momentum moving. I think I'm speaking at a group in Cadillac tomorrow. Patrick Teague from Consumers is on this housing group, and they wanna know how we're doing it. So it's a credit to the city, you know, that you took the bull by the horns and we started doing. The street looks great if you've seen Mechanic Street. I mean, it was a wise investment.
Do you have any criterion for people on a basis of their location, where they live, what they do, or?
No.
Next thought to get preference to Big Rapids or Mecosta County both,
It's a city resident
or county resident.
yeah, we haven't thought that far, you know, through that whole
I
process
don't want to
of
get our
selling.
hopes up that people are gonna be beating down the door, but
They're good.
that's a great thought to have.
About how much would one of these houses be when put on the market?
Well, we're hoping we're gonna get it around $225,000 as a sale price. You know, with a build price, we're thinking it's gonna be somewhere around $270,000 per house.
And this is, every builder knows that they're quoting 5 houses. So they have all said there is definitely some economy of scale there that they are passing on to us. And it's not cheap to build a house.
Yeah, the last build in Brookside was like $300,000. So if that gives you any perspective. So.
Very good. Questions from the public? Questions from the commission?
Just thank you so much for this great work. We're looking forward to more of it.
Thank you.
So, you know Linda's appointed, and Lisa Sinkowski's here too. She's the new assistant director, so there's a new regime, and they're gonna do a great job. Linda's done a great job with these grants and managing, you know, our current properties and looking into the future too.
Well, like Mark said, you guys really put your trust in us, so we want to make sure we do everything we can to get these lots sold.
This missing in the middle grant was incredible, Linda. Great job. I mean, that grant makes the house totally affordable. You knock that, you know, even $50,000 off. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, well, I think there's a recognition statewide that it's missing.
Yeah.
I mean, the folks they don't necessarily qualify for some of the housing programs, and they can't buy a house yet. So, I mean, we think this is gonna help them achieve the American dream.
Please, Joe.
How many square feet are they, Mark, on the average, I guess?
1340.
Yeah, 1340.
Yeah, full basements, 2-car garage. So we're looking at this innovative, you know, we need to meet a higher energy efficiency with these houses too. And we've gotten all kinds of different thoughts about that, but one of the processes is this, what's it called, ICF,
Yes. Insulated concrete.
insulated concrete blocks, which then you can draw all right to them. You don't have to insulate the stud out, insulate the basements to meet the energy codes. So it gets like an R50 or something in the basement.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
coming. You're free to leave, Linda, if you'd like to leave.
Why are you
We got a long
pulling me
meeting.
out right now? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I skipped the approval of the minutes. We don't want to dare do that. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of April 17th?
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. Questions on the minutes, corrections, additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Next, master plan update. Michelle Stenger, Director of Community Development. Does your PowerPoint work, Michelle?
No, I didn't do one.
The master plan for the city was originally done in 2009, and they did an update in 2018. Normal practice for an update to a master plan is about every 10 to 15 years, depending on what's going on in the economy, the culture, growth of the community, changes in the community, things like that. Last winter, I believe you guys started talking about updating your master plan. So when I got here, I put together an RFP to redo the master plan, and we interviewed 2 firms that applied that we were interested in. Out of that interview, we liked Williams and Works. They thought that they did the community best. They had a lot of outreach to public in their community with I think 4 different public outreach events that they would host with us to get people out and get their ideas and their opinions about how they'd like the community to grow and what changes they think we need or what they like to keep the same. And so that's what the master plan is. It's a roadmap to provide the city with some guidance on zoning and development to get where we need to be. So this is just an update to let you know that next week we're going to be coming with a contract from Williams and Works to do that update process. We figure it will take us about a year and a half maybe.
Thank you. Questions?
Please. Have you reached out into any of the other local township boards or the county boards to see where they're at with their master plan? What involvement would we have with them as we're updating ours? So it's kind of 2 questions.
We have not reached out to any of the other communities that surround us or townships or boards, but part of the master plan updating process is you have to contact everyone that touches your borders or within so many mile radius of your community to let them know that you're updating it, and then you have to send them a draft plan as well so that they have the opportunity to do public input on those plans.
I think the county's is almost 20 years old. St. Rapids Township, I think, they might not have one. I don't want to speak out of turn. And then Green Township as well. I just think we're all going through this effort. As you're talking to them, it would be really valuable to have maybe a dedicated meeting or something like that, specifically with the local government.
Michelle, how are we doing on the last master plan?
We're doing fairly well in reading those initiatives. The last master plan, when it was written, was laid out a little bit differently than how they do them now. So the goals in the last master plan aren't quite so specific. So now they kind of have a new implementation strategy that they developed within the master plan. But we've reached a fair amount of the goals that were in the original master plan.
As a new 1.5 year person, but I was shocked at the price tag on master plan marked before me today. It's a pricey little endeavor.
It is a pricey endeavor. Part of the priciness is the amount of public input that we're hoping to gather from the community for that process.
Mark, anything?
No, just for public knowledge, and I was gonna talk about it during the budget too, the price tag, Mayor, is $95,000, of which Michelle did great work to get some state assistance of 25 roughly. So there'd be, the state would be helping pay for that as well.
Is there a state law that you have to have an active master plan to get certain grants, et cetera?
You have,
For some reason?
you have to have an active master plan to do zoning. And then the state requires in the Zoning Enabling Act that it's updated every 5 years. But that update doesn't have to be as massive as what we're doing.
So the counties is 20 years old, Commissioner?
Maybe, I'll find out.
They're right on that. Thank you.
Well, really, the
Yes.
cost in this regard, I look at as an investment in our future, because the master plan, I mean, we're at a real crossroads potentially right now, depending on whether or not the factory comes. And so it'd be really, it's so vitally important for the public to weigh in on this, to help us shape the vision for this city going forward, and kind of get out in front of things and put our arms around it so that we can shape it the way we want to see it.
And be as transparent as possible, so I think it's, the meetings with the public are so crucial, and, we just wanna make sure we're getting a lot of notice on the, if they need to go on the radio or anything like that, to have them involved.
Anyone else, questions, comments? Thank you, Michelle.
Yep.
The ethic policy language, Jennifer, are you speaking, or is Brad speaking? You're speaking?
Well, Brad can weigh in if he would like, I don't know.
I'll let you handle it unless you have questions.
Really, this is coming before you folks again. The only difference is a slight change in the language in section 6, which, in conference with Commissioner Stillman and I went out and looked at other ethics policies again to see how they word things. And so I thought that this wording would just be a little clearer. And it really, I believe, captures the essence of why we have the ethics policy in the first place, which is to make sure we're behaving properly. So really, my only purpose tonight is to make sure everyone has seen the wording, and if it's okay, then I would like to be able to give Mrs. Gillis the word to go ahead and amend the ordinance, and then we will have to vote on the ordinance next meeting, I believe. Assuming Mr. Fowler gives us the okay.
Yes, no, I've looked at the language already with Commissioner Cochran, and I think it's ready to be translated into an ordinance amendment.
That's really my only purpose for the
Questions? Anyone, commissioners?
I'll just say I appreciated working with Commissioner Cochran on this. These are our, what did you call them, Brad? Our aspirational, right? And so I think revising that second paragraph is just a little bit more clear on what those are. So I think it's great, and I really appreciate going through that effort with you.
Thank you. Back at you.
Thank you. Questions? Next item is the first presentation on this year's 23-24 budget. Carla.
Excuse me, talk about the general fund first. And the general fund is the fund that's responsible for the main daily operations of the city. The fund has three major revenue sources: property tax, income tax, and state shared revenue. These three revenue items are responsible for 72% of the general fund income. And when we're looking at expenditures, the major cost in the general fund is public safety related expenditures, which account for approximately 43% of the budget. And finally, as a best practice measure, the Government Finance Officers Association, or the GFOA, recommends retaining a fund balance of 2 months of operating expenses, equivalent to approximately $1,400,000. And currently, we're set to be double that, so we're doing really well with our funds. And when we're talking about state shared revenue, they have added a component to that we didn't have previously, and that is public safety, and that's approximately, so it's a new component that we're getting, and that is for public safety, and that's approximately $32,000. And that's because we comply with some of their requirements as far as publishing what our budget is and putting it out there and sharing that information. So you can choose to opt out of that, but then you would lose out on some revenue. And then the other part of that is the constitutional, which is based on population. And initially, we thought that we were going to have a cut to that because it was going to be based on our 2020 census of 7,727. But they have now given us, looked at that and given us a new figure. And I think it's, Mark? They added like 2,676.
Yeah, 10,000. So 10,000. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a huge increase there. And then as far as our major and local street revenue, we're also we have a number that we're using there as well. It's a slightly different number, but it's still 10,000 in the 10,000 range, so that helps us out as well as far as our revenues go. So if you are looking at our fund balance projections, you can see how the general fund is projected to end at June. And we do have we're projecting a healthy fund balance based on what our budgeted revenues are, our budgeted expenditures, and then what the overage is. So all of the funds look pretty good. And then I just wanted to mention on the general fund major revenue sources, under the income tax section, the income tax refunds for the projected and the budgeted, those should be minus. So I do have a corrected page for you for those. But that doesn't change the revenue that's budgeted, it's just when you net it with the refund. So the revenue listed in the budget is correct. And the proposed capital improvement projects, I think you've all seen before. If you have any questions on those, they're listed by projects for the general fund, major street fund, local street fund, state skate park, DDA, airport, Hemlock Park fund, sewer fund, sewer replacement fund, and water fund, water replacement fund, and motor pool. So there's approximate there of $3,322,600 in capital improvement projects. And then the next item is debt service. We have wastewater bond, revenue bond that is currently outstanding. The outstanding debt as of 6/30/24 is $3,245,000. Airport hangar USDA loan. The outstanding balance as of 6/30/24 will be $985,000. And library capital improvement bond, we're almost done with that. So at the end of June of 24, we'll have one more payment left of $65,000. Then we have the two new ones. We have the Mechanic Street improvement bond, and that balance as of June 30th, 24 will be $830,000. And the Hemlock Park improvement bond will be $950,000. So that gives us the total outstanding debt of $6,075,000. And if you're looking at our very last page of the overall budget, we're showing our estimated revenue at $32,404,082, and then our expenditures are higher at $35,857,800. So we do have expenditures over revenues, and the difference is $3,453,718. And with our fund balance being in a healthy position, we can support that. any questions? I know Mark has a few points that he would like to make as well.
Sure, I'll jump in there, if that's okay. First off, I'd like to compliment Carla. She had worked very hard to put this together, and there are a few tweaks that we found, and so it'll be slightly different as it comes back around to you. We have a public hearing tonight. We're also having a public hearing next week. We're going to have obviously a copy available at City Hall. We're going to have it on our website so everybody can see. She pointed out a number of great things. I would like to point out a few more just for total transparency. I may try to do this at both of our meetings because there's lots of items in here, and sometimes it can get lost in there. All of these things that I'm going to mention, except for one, is under total control of the City Commission, and having it in the budget does not obligate you to spend it. It just is preparing you to do so if you so wish. So I'll provide this information so you don't have to follow along right now. I'll follow up with it. But on page 6 in the city manager's budget, you'll see the purchase of the land from the Ives Drain. We talked about that. We'll talk about it again. They're preparing a contract that would come back to you to do that. There's the sale at $279,000, and there's the subsequent revenue of a resale at $240,000. So those are both in here. Again, only if that's something you wish to pursue. That'll be coming back. We have to do aerial photos. It's an important tool for the city in assessing and engineering in a lot of different ways. We utilize those. Ours are old. The last time we did them, I think, was 2014. And we have in the budget for just shy of $40,000 to do new aerial photos for next year if the commission sees fit to do that. The next one is the only one on my list that is not something that we have a choice in. It's the first time we'll make an Ives Drain payment this year, this winter, of $106,000 is the city's payment. It's a really interesting, I see the mayor giving me a look. It's a really interesting payment schedule that it varies. From year one, we're at 106, and at the end, we're at 50. We're unclear on exactly how it is.
We need to find out from the Drain Commission what mechanism they were using to calculate that,
It's divided out.
So that,
1.2 million.
It's clearly not,
20.
right, declining double balance.
It's
to find out
an
what their method is.
interesting repayment schedule, and
So they're taking a month ahead, or a year ahead.
it could be, but next year's is even higher. It was 106 this year, 126 next year, then it drops off, and we have the payment schedule from them. It's just, this is our first year to have it in the budget, and it's in there.
Okay.
You heard from Michelle about community development and master plan at $95,000. That's in as well. We have two big projects, one of which we've talked long and hard about. Others we haven't as much. And some of this I really want to point out is the reason that there's that our spending is higher than our revenue. And it's because we have some big projects here. We're pursuing, or hoping to pursue, a grant to redo the depot trailhead. And we think that's a really valuable project to the city. And if awarded, would have an obligation of the city of $500,000. And that's in here. And we have already talked about, I know the Housing Commission, I see Mark and Ruth back there. We talked about a retaining wall replacement in Hemlock Park. If you remember back to those conversations, we applied to EGLE for a high water grant that we are set to hear back from. We're pending soon. Our obligation there is $500,000. The Housing Commission $500,000, and then it was a $1.5 million grant, so a total of $2.5 million. That's in as well. We have heard from members of the community about how entry signs that we have coming in some of the various locations could be better. We have in our DDA budget on page 35 $50,000 to improve our entry signs. We all know it's very well known about our splash pad and playscape replacement, and we have two grants
totaling $1.2 million, but total project cost of $1.8 million is in the budget. And lastly, on page 58 in our water fund, we have $2.4 million budgeted to replace the water main from the State Street water tower to just past the Ferris water tower. Over almost $2.5 million. So
aren't they paving that right now here this month?
they would bore that water main in there. Yeah,
Bore that.
that would be bored in. Yep, yeah, it'd be a big project. So it's one that really needs to happen, and is also included in our water revolving fund application that we'll hear more about next week. But all those things are within here. I will make sure you have that information in detail. And I will do more of that as we meet again next week.
Mark, why did you think you'd sell the drain house for less than we bought it for?
That would be, so the idea behind that, Mayor, is to create more housing opportunities. And so we would keep a portion of it, sell the house and land at probably a smaller amount. And we didn't budget any revenue for the sale of the other land. At some point we would get it, but whether we get it in this year, probably not. That was the thought process.
Gotcha. Questions for Mark?
A couple for Mark and Carla. What we call the marijuana funds or the revenue sharing for marijuana, where would I find that in here? Is it built into the budget?
As far as what we're gonna receive?
As far as our,
the revenue part of it?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be listed in, let's see.
It's actually on page 1,
Yeah.
Commissioner. It starts with all the revenues, and the first page you'll see income tax just below that.
Marijuana tax,
600,000.
101,001, 439,000. We never know what we're gonna get there. We've got, businesses coming and going, so we try to kind of project on the lower end for that compared to what we got this past year.
On page 1, how am I so blind I can't see it?
Yeah, that's page 1 of the budget, Commissioner. You're on the attached sheet, so you'd have to keep going.
Sorry, I'll look for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I can make sure to call that out again as we go through this.
Fine.
Other questions on the budget? Anyone? Thank you, Carla. Public comment unrelated to things on the agenda. Anyone? Hearing none, we're going to go to the public hearing on the budget. We're mandated to have 2, right, Mark? Public hearings on the
We're
budget?
actually mandated to have 1, but we're advocating to have 2 this year.
So I'll open the public hearing to all members of the city and commission regarding the public hearing related to the subject of budget. Anyone? Commissioners? I'm gonna close it then. I get to do this again. Public hearing's closed on the budget. Come next week, Monday, and if you have budget concerns or questions. General business. Resolution requesting for an extension of Star Shooter as part of the alumni reunion. I don't know if Deb's here. Oh, Mary's here. They had a great reunion last year, hugely attended, and Star Shooters did a great job, they say, on it. So, Marianne, do you have anything to add before we?
This will be our 3rd year of having, or our 4th year of having it downtown Big Rapids. The first 2 years, we blocked off the north end of Michigan, and then last year the south end in front of Star Shooters, and then this year we want to do the same again. And it worked out real well last year. This year we're going to have 2 tents, but it goes over real well. We usually have between 400 and 500 people. And as a note too, the Alumni Association just filed paperwork to set up a 501c3 nonprofit too. So we're really excited about that.
Great. Let's have a resolutions for the extending the Star Shooters as part of the reunion, and then we'll have discussion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there support? Support. Motion support. Now, further discussion regarding the reunion party? Danny, you're fine.
I think it's great.
Anyone? All right, thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, I just, on behalf of the reunion committee also, and Mary Ann, obviously, she does the bulk of the work, but we'd like to thank the city for really being cooperative. And
Very good, thank you.
really has helped make it a success.
Thank you, Joe. Others? Very good. Looking forward to it. Resolution declaring a charter revision of the set. Did that vote? All right, we got to vote.
Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes,
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
it passed. Karen.
Yes.
5-0. Resolution declaring the charter revision establishment of the Charter Revision Commission. Tammy.
Yes, we did, last commission meeting, we did the first, resolution. This one here is now the next one that needs to get done before we can, we gotta do the language of it. And then it'll be, I can give it to the county, we'll be all set for November.
And what does the language say?
Shall there be a general revision of the charter of the city of Big Rapids? Yes or no? If it says yes, then we'll start our commission and we'll get some names. I've gotten a couple of names already. We could do some more people for the charter commission, and we could use the city commission seats are available as well. So we got petitions for those too.
Very good, thanks, Tammy. A resolution declaring charter revision and establishment of the Charter Revision Commission. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion and support.
Support.
Further questions? Tammy? Or Karen, I'm sorry, Karen.
That's okay. Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Public Works, the bid for the sidewalk improvement, Heather.
Mayor, I'll defer to the city manager if you don't mind. This is a project that he was really engaged in.
Sure, Mayor, I'm happy to talk about this. This is something that we've had individuals and organizations on the east side of town advocating for some time, to extend sidewalk down to the area that's community mental health, New Journey Clubhouse, our brother Skifer, and that's what we're doing on one side of the road here. On the east side of the road from the East Side Grocery or Colburn down to those places I had mentioned, we have put a project out to bid. We have one bidder, Ron Olson. We're very comfortable with working with Ron, and we think we have good numbers here at just shy of $34,000 to do the work. And we have a contribution from MDOT, $5,000, I believe, who are going to help pay towards it too. So it's a project that has been waiting for a long time, and happy to bring it to you. Recommend it.
Very good. Do I hear a motion regarding the sidewalk improvement program?
So moved. Support.
Motion and support. Questions further? Hearing none, Tammy, or Karen.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes. Next is a resolution approving the Rural Transit Assistance Program third-party contract addendum.
Mayor, we have applied for this before, as you'll see, given the opportunity to get some more funding for training for Dollar Ride. So it would be a total of $10,000. I think the contract's in your packet and been looked at by our city attorney, and recommend you awarding or authorizing the mayor to sign on behalf of the city.
Questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support. Motion and support. Further questions? Karen?
Simmons.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, airport weather observation and data dissemination system. Mark?
Yeah, we have, obviously, weather is important to pilots, and we have a system out there that's also important to MDOT. They have it upcapped. We share the cost, about $2,500 a year for this system, and so you have an agreement to keep doing that into the future.
Is it new equipment, or that's just their?
No, we've had it for many years, and really the same contract. So we did a 5-year contract 5 years ago, and the wording really hasn't changed, so.
The equipment hasn't changed?
No.
What do they
It's
do
not a
with
good
the
system, and that does a nice job.
What do they do with the 2,500 then, if you don't have to change the software or anything else?
So they come in, they calibrate it. The FAA requires an annual inspection, so they come out and do that, and then they do biannual inspections in addition to that. And when they come out, they do the calibration, make sure it's recording correctly. They also observe it all the time and make sure that if any data isn't supporting current weather conditions, they'll flag it for repair and they'll come out to repair it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions? Anyone? There's a motion for that resolution regarding the weather observation.
So moved.
Support. Motion support. Questions? Tammy or Karen?
Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Next is another airport issue resolution authorizing the American Rescue Plan Act. Mark?
Yes, Mayor, $32,000 through ARPA funding to be used for the airport is needed funds.
When does this rescue plan end?
We don't know. We don't have an answer to that question, Mayor. Whether there be more or not, we don't know.
Is there a motion for authorizing receiving that money?
So support.
Questions? Karen?
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
The next is near and dear to my heart, because being on the hospital board, every year we fought with the state on how much money we had to put into the pension plan to keep it viable. And Mark will explain what they're trying to pull now, which we're trying to fight. Mark?
Yeah, Mayor, you're exactly right. And in fact, just in the non-police and fire retirement unfunded liability for defined benefit pension plans, on behalf of the city, we pay about $900,000 annually to get funded. But we're over 60%, and so that's why this is in front of you. There's an effort afoot among city managers, and the MML is working on it. The legislature had a bill in front of them last summer to provide funding to communities to help deal with that pension liability. It was $750 million for communities that were funded under 60%, and $250 million for those above 60%. The $750 million passed, the $250 million did not. This is a effort to politely ask the legislature to reconsider funding that, and of which we would be a recipient.
So they're helping the people who didn't keep up and pay their bill yearly, but not those who kept up and paid their bill.
That's one way to look at it, Mayor.
That is the only way. So this is just to get us to jump on and try
Yes, we'll send if you pass this, Mayor, we will send the resolution in, and we're gonna ask you to sign a couple letters, one to our state rep, Tom Kuntz, and one to our Senator, Roger Holt. And, it sounds like there's some traction being gained, but maybe we'll be able to help that.
Thank you. Questions?
Hopefully we'll be able to send someone down to Lansing to do with kitchen first.
Ooh, there we go.
I think we have someone
very
very
vested.
Is there we need a motion? That's not a resolution. We could just do this.
No, we do have a resolution.
So moved.
Support.
I'm sorry, was that Simmons support?
Yes.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Cochran.
Yes.
Next is the resolution adopting the amended city paid parental leave policy for full-time non-bargaining unit. Who's leading on this?
I think, position paper Melissa prepared, and I know Brad has worked on it as well. So Melissa, would you like to start?
That's fine. As my position papers state, and then, some conversations that have taken place, is that the intent of this was to clarify that originally, when this was adopted in August of 2021, that it was intended for the non-bargaining employee group. Not saying that we don't want this benefit for other employee groups, but we needed to clarify that. And then the intent would be to negotiate with the respective collective bargaining groups, because that's legally the way that it should be done, is to bargain that with the groups. So I apologize for last time I didn't have the copy of the policy that had the changes that you guys have this time so that you can see. This was something that was done, yes, the City of Big Rapids was kind of stepping out and doing something that a lot of other employers hadn't done. So it was kind of a pilot thing in the beginning. And there were some concerns, questions, were we going to have issues, certain areas, maybe not. So since it's been a couple of years, obviously the opportunity to kind of take a step back, evaluate, can we clarify some things in the policy? So those were some of the changes that I had recommended. Labor attorney Nate Wolf and then Brad has reviewed them and made other recommendations as well. One thing that is, when you're the first entity that's kind of doing it, there's not a whole lot to use as comparables. Now, this time I use the city of Kentwood, the city of Detroit, kind of as some examples as far as what they're doing. So some of the proposed changes align with what their policies are. So my recommendation is to make those clarifications and then to have the benefit be 4 weeks of paid parental leave for all non-bargaining employees, and then the intent would be to then bargain that with the respective groups. There's implementation of a policy like this. Non-bargaining is a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 group, so it's kind of easy to do that. We have AFSCME employees that some of them are a Monday through Friday, but then we have some water and wastewater are 7-day operators. So what does that look like? So obviously we would have to have that conversation with that group to see how that would best implement that. Police and fire, we both, we all know that those are, 24/7 operations. So what would that look like with those groups as well? So I have the proposed changes to the policy. Welcome any questions, clarifications?
You mentioned, so apologies, Nick. You mentioned that it was legally the way to do it, and I don't know that I am restating this correctly, but my understanding was regarding the bargaining units negotiating this benefit, legally, they would, to get this, they need to bargain for it versus it being the city policy.
That's correct. So it's called self-dealing. If the city were to pass a policy that would apply to all bargaining for employees, that would be considered self-dealing because you didn't involve the unions, and then the unions can come at you legally, and there's penalties involved with that. So in order to do it legally, you can pass policies all day long for your non-bargaining employees for those different bargain for units. They would need to be negotiated by their respective unions and collective bargaining. So you have before you a revised resolution, which we revised today, and basically because the original intent was that this would apply to non-bargaining employees, but the language of that resolution was a little bit ambiguous or confusing. But it turns out that in practice that wouldn't work for bargain for employees anyway. So there's a need to clarify that and amend the policy, which is what led to this effort. But I think if the intent is to then allow for all city employees to have some sort of paid parental leave, the process for doing that would be first amend the policy for clarify it's for non-bargaining units, amend it however you see fit, and then in this amended resolution, which we provided for you, you would direct and authorize the city staff to then negotiate with the respective bargaining units in the collective bargaining process for some paid benefit for each of the bargained for units.
Mark, you want to start? You have a comment?
I don't, Mayor. No, I mean, we're happy to work with the unions. We're working with the fire group right now. In fact, we have a meeting on Friday.
Yep.
And I'm always happy to meet with those at the police department.
Sorry, Mark. We actually have our IBB, we meet monthly with the ACME group. That meeting is scheduled for Wednesday. I sent an email to both the sergeants and the patrol reps, Jason Owen and Scott Blackwell, and let them know what the change was for tonight's meeting, and that I would be following up with them as soon as the meeting was done this evening to move forward with scheduling meetings with them as well.
Brad, how many other policies in the city are being followed by for the bargainers that are getting something in the city policies? Is this the only one?
I haven't done a comprehensive look at my policy.
There may be 10 more.
Right. I mean, to the extent that if the commission were, I mean, just from this policy, if the commission were to adopt something that applied across the board to everybody, you probably have asked me, calling me tomorrow saying you can't do that. You got to talk to us. You know, and the other unions.
So you think this might be the only thing?
I don't know. You have to look at all the policies and see has there been, but I mean there are collective bargaining agreements for all those unions, and they negotiate regularly to get those things in there. So sorry.
Point of clarification, because I'm still not entirely clear about this. When you talk about, you know, we're hearing language that this policy is identified for non-bargaining unit members, correct? And I think we have one group out of the 4 employee groups that is not union. Is that correct?
Correct. We have one non-union.
One non-union, 4 union. Okay. So when you say that then the staff are authorized and directed to negotiate a leave benefit for the covered employees under the bargaining units, is that carrying over the 4 weeks to the bargaining units, and then they're going to just negotiate how that's to be implemented, or are we talking about a complete renegotiation of the amount of time allotted?
Well, I think it'd be a negotiation of time. My understanding is there's nothing in any of the collective bargaining agreements currently on parental leave, so they would negotiate it in, and it doesn't require, it's not a carryover necessarily of the 4, but it gives them a starting point, I suppose, to negotiate. But it's not saying 4. You're not saying
6, could be 8, could be 2, could be none,
right.
Whatever they bargain in.
Exactly.
So there's no time limit on this proposal. All it says is we will direct them to do that. Well, is that in 3 years or 10 years or tomorrow?
Well, so there's a way you can either do it in letters of understanding. You can amend the agreements as they're in place, and then the agreements come up for bargaining on a regular basis. Fire's already in the process.
But there's nothing here to say when that has to happen. There might be people who maybe want to plan a family based around that, and they don't know if it's there or not there.
Our intention is to do it now.
Yes.
And any individuals that it would apply to now, it would be retroactive. We have one employee who's actually on leave right now. I've had the conversation, said that, you know, we will have the discussion. It's easy to make an administrative adjustment to go back and change in the system what that employee did. If an employee is using leave right now and it's determined that they were eligible for the paid parental leave, then things would be changed in the system and that employee would be given back their sick time. That is the full intent of every conversation that I've been a part of with any of the union groups, is that anybody who this would apply to right now, that they're not going to be put at a disadvantage. I mean, like I said, we've got meetings scheduled this week, and I'm more than happy to schedule the other 2 groups either this week or next week so that we can work on this. I don't believe the intent is to not or to drag it out.
I would welcome time frame. In fact, I think we could have it done in 45 days, if not quicker. likely much quicker. So if you, Mayor, and maybe on Brad's recommendation, added a time to have the work done, I will have the work done.
Well, I think the commission can ask each week is the work done.
Sure.
We don't need it to be written there, but
okay,
it could cause like a revolution if you just let it linger.
I won't let it linger.
Go
I
ahead.
would like to see it written there. I would like to see it written there as a protection for the people who serve our community and work for us. To know that we are taking due diligence, see some form of documentation that we are at least in the process of it, if not having a firm end date. Like, talks will start now. Talks will start by this date. So, you know, if
2 meetings are already scheduled.
right, so
I mean, I don't know what else to say other than that.
The resolution can be amended to a time frame if that's what the commission's interested in doing.
Comments? Sean Webbington. You don't live in the city either, do you, Sean? All firemen should live in the city.
I would like that. Maybe someday if I can get a bigger yard and a pole barn. John Webbington, President of the Big Rapids Firefighters Union. Mark and I have been discussing this at length, and it's all been in good faith, and we're very thankful for that, sir. And I'd like to thank the commissioners for giving such due diligence to this matter. Reading and talking with Melissa this afternoon, as it's written, we're very thankful and for the opportunity to negotiate this part. As far as the implementation goes, it would be my question to the commission: Are we? And as you spoke, what is your wishes? Do you want to see us negotiate time, or would you like to see it universal across the board as far as the allotted time off? And that's again part of the bargaining unit, and we would sit down. But I guess I would be curious for what your wishes are. But as far as implementation, for a policy to implement what police's staffing concerns are or fire's concerns are, it's hard to set a policy that wouldn't contradict contract. And I 100% agree with that we should sit down and bargain the implementation of it, but not necessarily the time. I would hope to see that's universal across the board. And we're thankful for the policy and the opportunity to even do that. So,
Thank you, Sean. Is the police union represented here or something on time for the, when is their contract up?
I think it's next year.
Yes, we start negotiating, sir.
So I would assume you'd want us to do this before next year's contract negotiation.
Yes. We would do a letter of intent.
Yeah, there's all the, I don't want to say that happens all the time, but when things come up,
You just have to do it.
we do a letter of understanding. I mean, when the city graciously gave its employees a 6% cost of living last year, we didn't say to the unions, well, your union contract says you're only going to get 2.5%. We took a letter of understanding to all of the union groups and said, okay, this is the city's stance, this is what they would like to do, you know, and we entered into a letter of agreement with them on that. There's been other things, you know, we do an annual, you know, letter of understanding in regards to healthcare. There's other things that have come up. I'm trying to think of some of the things in the past. You know, we've changed things with sick time buyout and those sorts of things. So it doesn't have to wait until the contract expires. We've had active conversations now. We know this is something that we're going to address now. It's just a matter of now coordinating people's schedules.
Commissioner Johnson, what do you think of all that? After your last comment, I was thinking you'd like an 8. And I can do it.
I think that having something written down, like, we have one more group we're waiting to hear from to schedule a meeting with, is that?
Well, the police are not till next year, so they'd have to be.
So we would have to draft something and bring it to them then? Is that how that would work?
But I've been in active conversations with Jason Owen and with Scott Blackwell. I mean, even before they knew that I was going to follow up with them as soon as the meeting was done and talk about next steps, scheduling meetings.
So that are you confident that we could have it resolved within 45 days?
I would hope yes. I mean,
yes, we're confident.
Yeah.
Mark, how did you come up with 4? There was 8, and then I said 6, and then you said 4. Who's deciding how many weeks it is? What magic wand are you waving on that one?
Well, I think what we experienced, Mayor, was that 8 was markedly high. Was there deep research to come up to 4? I wouldn't call it deep research. We did compare to what other places have. Some have more, some have less. 4 sounded like a number that was more sustainable in terms of staffing. I don't think it's any more complicated than that.
Okay. Now from the floor.
Mayor, I do have a question for Mr. Fowler. In regard to Sean's comments about the number of weeks, he's asking for that to be equal across the board. What you're proposing and saying here is that we can't do that?
I wouldn't. It hampers your bargaining position, city's bargaining position. I mean, you can set it for non-bargaining employees. That's what the policy does.
Yeah. And
then you can direct staff to negotiate. But it'd be hard if you pick a number across the board. It might be different for police versus fire based on their staffing needs. One number might be appropriate for one group and not another. And I don't know if any of us here have that information at hand to be able to make that decision. So I would caution against setting a number across the board and leave that up to the negotiating process of each individual union.
Sir.
My question would be then for him to you, is it wrong to ask for the wishes of the commission as opposed to giving a hard number? And then as I spoke to the implementation, currently right now we have 12 weeks FMLA that we could potentially use, and that's unpaid. So this is in concurrent with that 12 weeks over a 12 calendar year. As far as implementation goes, in my mind, and just dreaming it up as I lay in bed at night, I thought, if this was used kind of like FMLA, only paid time where it had to be scheduled, an employee had to, the implementation could be there. And all bargaining groups have sat down and said that we're willing to negotiate this. We don't want to see a hardship to our fellow employees, to management, and absolutely to the citizens of Big Rapids. We want to make sure that our mission is continuing to be fulfilled in a timely manner. So that's my thought of implementation. I mean, we can spread it out. It doesn't have to be used in a chunk, but that's part of the bargaining process. So I guess my question would be, is it wrong to ask, your wishes is to attempt to make all attempts, because contracts are different. My schedule is different than police, and my benefits are different than police to a degree. Is that wrong as well?
Those kind of things, Mark will get pounded by each one of us at our weekly meeting. We try to do that a little bit privately, and why we choose what we choose. But in the long run, when the vote comes, we'll have to go public if it's desired. Commissioner Johnson, would it be satisfactory to you to pass the resolution as it is, knowing that Tammy, the clerk, is going to put it on the next commission meeting that's closest to 30 days to see how Melissa and Mark are coming? Would that satisfy you?
To have an update,
Yes,
within 30 days.
that she has to put on the agenda. Would that suffice? And if it doesn't, we'll put a date on it then.
I think that would be, that's progress. That's seeing tracking on this for the parties who are most urgently potentially being impacted by it.
Anybody else? Please.
This has been a really difficult issue for us to be thinking about. For me particularly, there are so many variables that we need to be mindful of. I'm certainly very cognizant of the challenges facing HR in this employment climate. And I know that's been exacerbated by COVID and just the whole landscape for employment and benefits and so forth has just kind of gone haywire. I understand, that our size as a city government has to be taken into consideration, and we do need to be mindful, certainly, of our duty as a legislative body to ensure that the public safety is met. It's a difficult one because we want to attract employees with attractive benefits. And I actually was going to ask you kind of a tangential question about having, if we're going to have the benefits in half from what they've been for the past 2 years, how do you think that's going to impact our ability to recruit and retain employees?
Honestly, I don't feel that this would impact it like other things. That's my honest professional opinion.
All right.
I think this is a great benefit, but I don't think that's what's driving turnover, and I do not believe that that's what's driving people leaving.
Okay, well, I appreciate that input. In response to Mr. Weddington's question, for me, and I don't know if this is naive or not because I've never been involved in union negotiations, never having been a member of a union. But the word that comes to my mind is equitability. I appreciate that the implementation cannot be the same between the fire and the police and the public safety because, you know, these folks have different schedules. So I don't know what equates in terms of hours off or days off. But I would hope, certainly, as I believe has been done in the past, that any negotiations would arrive at something that is equitable to the extent possible across all employee groups. I guess that's the best way I can answer that for Mr. Weddington. I guess you answered the question because I think there are 2 other requests already pending from public safety, are there not, that have come in? So I guess it's depending on whether the baby is born before or after the negotiations happen, whether there's retroactive.
There would be an adjustment. I mean, I use the example that, you know, unfortunately, if you have an employee that says, oh, you know, really, I meant to use vacation time and not use my comp time. I'd like to do something, you know, can we change that? We can go back in the system and adjust that and flip the time as far as the way the employee intended for that to be done.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess, you know, bottom line, and just to state the obvious, what's really critical here is continuing open and objective and honest communication between all parties to make sure that everything gets out on the table, all voices are heard, and that, again, ideally come to an equitable solution.
Thank you. Others?
I do, Mayor.
Yes.
The April 17th, 2023 language in the policy, where did that date come from? Is that just because that was our last meeting?
That was the meeting.
So that would be updated?
So whenever there's revisions and stuff, when it's adopted, that's when it's reflected.
And then, one more thing. How many non-bargaining employees have we had use the benefit since it was initiated? And I understand you can't, it's 4, okay.
Please.
My name is Rachel Killingbeck. My husband is he's employed by the city for the last 2.5 years. We came, well I say we, but he originally worked for Spectrum, and we really didn't like where that was going from the family aspect. One of the draws for us to come here was the fact that they did offer some parental benefits, which we really appreciated. I am currently 6 months pregnant with our first child, and that was a benefit that we were really looking forward to using. I appreciate how much you guys are putting into this and making sure that we are good. Hopefully get something. I appreciate those of you that are asking for a time frame, because being 6 months pregnant, I like to know what's going on in another couple of months. The other thing that I want to say too is that my husband recently joined. He came originally as a fireman, did that for 2 years, and then he was recruited to the police side. One of the things, the question was asked to Melissa if it was a draw or not. The answer is yes. For our family, it was definitely a draw. He was multiple departments attempted to recruit my husband. We decided that this is where we wanted to be because this is the area we grew up. This is the community that we know. But a benefit like this would be amazing for us, especially being this is our first child, and I don't know what we're expecting. So I really appreciate that you guys are considering this and the time and effort that you're putting into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Others? Commissioners?
The thing I'm still struggling with is the reduction from 8 to 4 weeks. I just have not heard a sufficient not argument, but a sufficient rationale for me as to when we are looking to hire people and retain them, we would take such a drastic cut to something that we were all pretty proud of when we first passed it in 2021. So I struggle with that, and I'm still struggling with that, and I don't know that 4 weeks just doesn't sound right to me.
Thank you. Other commissioners? Does anyone like to make nominate the resolution adopting the Family Medical Leave Act as changed? Anyone?
I would make the motion if we were to bump up the number of weeks to 6 from 4. I think that's a good compromise.
I would support that.
I would say that again.
If we bump the number of weeks from 4 to 6.
Who did we hear from? Just me. I'm a 6-week check guy because I'm an OPT by But, Mark, Melissa, have at it. You chose the 4, I didn't choose the 4.
I've given you my explanation, Mayor, I have no other, it's your call.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else more you want me to say. I mean, we've increased vacation time for non-bargaining in the last couple of years, and there's things that we negotiate with the different groups. Not that I don't want people to have a benefit, but I've also been that, I've always felt that, employees need to have a little something invested in it, as well. So I don't know what else to say. Whatever you guys decide, I'm here, I do my job, so.
Thank you. Was yours an official resolution? This resolution was 6 weeks instead of 4. Is that your official resolution? Is there support?
Support.
Motion and support. Anyone? Motion now is as written here with 6 weeks instead of 4, and immediate negotiation with those who have union contracts, and that Tammy Gill, city clerk, is going to put that on the agenda at a meeting about a month from now.
Oh, not the next meeting.
No, that's a little, they need a little more time than that. Further questions, comments, anything? Karen, roll call.
Johnson?
Yes.
Simmons?
Yes.
Cochran?
Yes.
Epley?
Yes.
Sumter?
Yes. Motion carries. Next, and you have to stay, Fireman Pratt. You stay in your seat. You start bailing out, you're gonna. No, you're at money.
We have a fire. Do we have to stay or should we?
I don't hear any radios.
Next, Michelle, you changed the ordinance on the manufactured homes. And at my meeting this morning, did you amend that little phrase?
We did.
How did you do it?
So if you look it's on your desk, there should be, the language was a little bit, as the mayor pointed out, legally, he didn't like it in that first paragraph. And so we looked at that and we clarified, the meaning is still the same, nothing's changed with the intent of it. It just changes the language to say that manufactured homes, mobile homes have to be up to the HUD standards as they are amended, which is a requirement of law. And then if they are not new from the manufacturer, they have to be approved by the city as either like new or
By the city.
By the city.
Who's the city?
The city could be, that's up to the city. It would usually probably be a combination of a building inspector, Michelle, somebody from our department that would go out and determine, is it up to excellent condition and like new standards.
It could be city manager or designee.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Michelle might have a friend who wants to sell her used mobile home,
So we're amending that to say city manager or designee? Okay.
City manager, or which paragraph is this?
This first.
Second to last sentence in the first paragraph.
It must be found by the city?
manager or designee is what we suggested, but that's, the commission would have to correct that.
So,
Number one.
so number one,
It's in the red.
It's in the red.
Yeah, right. Last sentence, if the manufactured home is not new from the manufacturer, it must also be found by the city, which could change to city manager or his designee to be an excellent elected official.
alright.
Questions? Anyone? Karen?
Is this, are we pulling, is this standard? So are there other communities that have similar ordinances? And are there specifications that are put in there that the city manager or designee would be utilizing? Because a building inspector at least has their knowledge of everything to do with building to pull from to make that determination, whereas the city manager may not, or even a designee, like if he has to recuse himself. So is there a benefit to putting something in there to kind of guide future decision makers if this ever comes before the city?
So to answer your question about has this done in other communities, this language or a lot of these amendments came from other ordinances that dealt with manufactured housing or dwelling, single-family dwelling units. The designation of the city or city manager, that would not necessarily come from another ordinance. It could be a building inspector. The issue is if the building inspector is an outside party and not an employee of the city, that causes some issues too. So by something as general as the city manager's designee, you know, presumably then designate somebody with building expertise to go out and inspect that.
Okay, but it does leave it open to interpretation at a later date.
Right. Well, it would be whoever the city manager designates, but yeah.
Right.
But in terms of the excellent or likely condition, that would be up to the discretion of that designee.
My question this morning still stands. Why didn't you just pull that all off and say they have to be new?
Well, the issue there is if there is a situation where I think the example is given, you've got somebody's parents bought a mobile home and passed away, and they want to, it's you know, a year old, and they want to use it and move it to a new location, they could then do it under this if it's like new condition. But if it's something that's 20 years old, it's probably not going to apply. So.
Gotcha.
I obviously haven't been able to attend a lot of meetings lately with regards to some of our subcommittees. What was the conversation about this at the planning commission meeting when you talked about new or like new? Because I think their original language was new.
The original language was new or like new. It just was a lot more words to get that across, and it made it confusing.
I think I was at I think it was right before you started, Michelle, the planning commission where they first addressed this, and it was actually brought up by members of the public asking if that's something like that could be added in can you make a requirement that they be new or in really good condition, and so that was something we looked at early on in the process.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for the ordinance regarding manufactured homes?
So moved.
Support.
Motion, support. Other questions? Karen?
Simmons. Yes. Cochran.
Yes.
Epley.
Yes.
Gunther.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Are we really going to have more, Mark?
Yes.
Do we have to circle the wagons for this one?
We do, but I have a couple other things that I can make it easy. Just a big
We're going for
quick.
nine.
Be quick.
It's only 7:53, Mayor.
I know, I think everybody's aware, but the police officer memorial is 9 a.m. on campus, and I think the weather's gonna be okay.
I think Abe's speaking, the new chief at Ferris.
I have had specific questions or conversations with Commissioner Simmons about strategic planning. And I just want to bring that to you as a group because Commissioner Simmons and myself can't make that call. We need input from everybody. And it's about strategic planning. Like I said, I almost say we didn't do it last year. That's the way I feel about it. And so the question was, do we want to try and do something yet this year, yet this summer? How, and does anybody on the commission have any resources as to who might be able to help us with that? We don't have to talk about this right this second. You don't have to answer those questions, but I need feedback, whether it's email or one-on-one meetings. We need feedback. So I just want to bring that to everybody's attention. So.
And what I'll share is that I was very pleased with the firm that we used for the city manager's evaluation and the process that we're using. I reached out to that firm, and while they don't do strategic planning, they did give me a name of someone that they highly recommend from a company called Parallel Solutions. And I think we could do strategic planning the way we always have, but I think we have an opportunity here to do something different.
Now we're supposed to circle the wagons there. Can we do it from here?
No, we need to go there.
There's so many people, I don't want anybody to move.
Oh, don't move. Go.
We want to table.
I don't, I'd be right here, but I'm being out. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you all.
Oh, fine. It's so late now, what difference does it make?
That's what,
Sorry. What's the manufactured house? Yeah. Whose opinion is it good shape or bad shape? I mean, we don't want you dummies, Joe. Okay? No. All right. No, I'm just saying. See, it used to be the
Every time I remember
face value.
Yeah, we got it.
What you mean? My truck isn't here.
I remember.
He's gonna feel better. Later, I'll jump in if we have.
Please do. We all here.
I think so I would classify it as the city's been approached by the downtown businesses essentially through Josh, through Kelly Wazik and others, for us to consider the implementation of the social district. Thanks, appreciate it. The implementation of a social district, and so we had some early discussions, and that's why we wanted to have a little next level discussions with the commission. Social districts allow certain businesses who participate to have the ability to serve beer, wine, alcohol to those in a specific way that then could travel throughout the downtown. They could go to sit in the park, sit on a picnic table, those types of things, whereas Manny could recite to us how that's not the right way to handle it right now, right? You can't be out in a public way with alcohol. So the social district is to create a vibe, if you will, in the downtown. This is new-ish, I would say 3 or 4 years old, maybe. Yep. We had some original conversations with the downtown when it first came out. They were maybe a little hesitant on it, but now I think they're on board. And so, Josh, maybe you want to talk about some of those.
Sure, yeah. So this originally came around during COVID. This was an opportunity for businesses to still serve the public because they couldn't have them inside. But the biggest hesitation with the downtown at that time was the fact that the stipulation was you'd have to shut down Main Street. You'd have to shut down the street, and it would have to be in order to have a social district. That is not the case now. And with that being the situation, and talking with all of the businesses downtown from Linden and Warren to, Linden and Warren, Linden State Street, all the way down to Pine, what is the downtown footprint, they're all in support. They had plenty of questions regarding certain stipulations of hours, days a week, things like that, what kind of control. We actually just found out today what the cost would be. So if you have a liquor license, at that point, then you are applying through the state for a permit. It is $70 for the inspection, $250 for the permit. Then you can participate within the social district. Everyone in the downtown that I spoke to was in full support.
Josh, is that just for the liquor providers? Or how about like if Carlene Rose wants to have people be able to go in their place with a glass of wine?
So they could. The permit would allow them to go in with already purchased.
It would?
Yes.
Does she have to get it?
She does not have to get a liquor license, but she has to get that permit.
70?
Yes.
So if she wanted to let people come in with a glass of wine, she'd have to pay $70 a year to do that.
70 for the inspection, then $250 for the permit. That would allow.
She has to pay for the permit too.
Permit allows.
She's not serving alcohol.
Correct, because that's a separate liquor license in general itself. So you still have to maintain a liquor license of your own in order to sell the alcohol. And then when you're selling it, you still have to get the permit on top of that liquor license to participate in the social district distribution.
What if she's not selling alcohol?
If she's not selling alcohol, she only has to pay for that permit and the 70 and the 250 to allow alcohol onto her premise.
Oh, man.
Otherwise, she doesn't have to allow.
Correct. At that point, if she doesn't
out.
want to, then she can just say there's no alcohol, we don't participate in the social district.
I never thought it'd be that high. I thought $70 was legit, but it's $220.
No, it's an annual cost.
From what I understand, and that was, I just found that out today, I do believe it is an annual.
I think
On
that's
the flip side, sorry.
No, as someone who pays for permits all the time with the state, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it?
$250 plus something, that's crazy.
Even though you're not the one selling the booze. If I was
But
selling
how
booze,
much is a liquor license?
At this point, as Tammy and I were talking earlier, we don't have any more liquor licenses that can be given out, but you can do the $1,500, what was the term?
It's a redevelopment.
The redevelopment liquor license at that point. So really, it's a matter of anybody who would be, like, if Carlene wanted to do it, she'd have to do a redevelopment in order to be able to even serve the alcohol as it is. So at this point, it's just a matter of allowing people into her business that are already consuming within the social district.
Who does this roll back?
Is this a,
That's my question.
is it a separate building we're talking about?
Yeah, it's a store, that doesn't serve alcohol.
Yeah, see, my understanding, and I haven't done a deep dive on this, but we have done some of these, and my understanding is that the way the statute is written is you can get a permit to then be able to serve alcohol, and then somebody in a designated container can use that alcohol anywhere in a common area, but you can't go into another permittee's licensed building. So you can go out to a common area, but going into a business.
You couldn't go into Carlene's Candy Store.
So even a permit wouldn't get you
Right.
that.
You can use it as a common area, but not inside the building.
So you'd finish it before you went in,
Right.
go grab another one if you wanted, or whatever. But I think Josh was talking about if she wanted to participate, because this talks about nonprofits too, which I thought was interesting, because they would be maybe more applied to what Josh is saying.
That would be more like artworks.
Artworks could purchase a permit, but I know it says something.
Yeah, but my understanding is if you're a Class B hotel, that's the exception, like you can bring alcohol into a hotel. But everywhere else, it wasn't, you'd have to stay in the common area.
So whenever Artworks has their wine and whatevers, they're not getting separate licenses for those, they're just doing it. Is that illegal? So if they're having a wine and cheese to watch some new artist, that's not legal.
They're selling alcohol.
They don't
sell
it.
They give it away.
No.
Probably not, I'm guessing.
We're not the salons have done it in town.
What's that?
So some salons have done it in town.
And that Serendipity did once, you know, the ladies who wouldn't have wine and buy clothes. Is that illegal too?
I have to look at the thing. There's exceptions to some of the rules where you can drink alcohol or have it, but.
And it's not for sale, you know,
Yeah.
that's one of the,
Right.
that's one of the big things.
Right.
They're not selling it.
Oh.
So how does this work? The customer that purchases alcoholic liquor to be consumed in a commons area must not transport that alcoholic liquor outside of the commons area.
Right.
Who's going to police that?
People who police it now.
Who are?
I mean, that's police. I mean, it's really not different than somebody with a Bud Light can who's walking down the street. We're gonna see it, knows it. So if they're outside the zone, we'll have a cop and we'll recognize it. The same as what we do.
That zone would be designated with signs
Signs.
around the perimeter basically of what that downtown district is, stating you are now entering a social district, you cannot have alcohol, you can only have alcohol during these times, on these days, such and such.
Okay, I was gonna ask you about that. What?
A special cup is required, you guys know, but it's
The
a
permit
blue cup and then.
the permittee has their, it's clear where it comes from.
Okay.
You guys.
Like somebody on the street,
Because
they've
the
got
city
a
would be
cup,
the ones applying for
you know
that,
right away.
designation.
That should be
And so
from,
we would designate what goes on.
we should be, you know, like.
And a lot of requests.
Is that a?
This is what humans weren't in favor of having alcohol in the streets and out of the bars.
So,
I've heard a little bit about that, and because the marijuana people can't go, you can't smoke joints up and down the street, why should you drink alcohol down the street?
I have a question. So, because I saw the map where it kind of blocked out, like you said, the footprint, would this mean that the common areas are then the sidewalks, or would we designate a parking lot or a park to be an atmospheric place to host that common area?
All the public city
Or
parks.
it would be
City
all of the
parking,
public
all the right of
places
ways, the city parks.
here.
That's the way it's proposed, that's the way we've talked about it right now.
Okay.
Or it could just be.
Could we designate potentially a
something.
park as a location that has a social district?
You're gonna have then people who are purchasing their alcohol at a bar up on Michigan walk to a park then. That's the only thing, so that it's not gonna be
I'm
utilized,
thinking Mitchell Creek.
it won't be utilized in the same way.
You have to have at least two businesses
Right.
have to be contiguous with social districts. You can't have them over here and social district be here.
So we'd
They have to be adjoining.
the milkshake shack. I'm sorry.
I mean,
So,
but
like-
the Mitchell Creek Park is included in the proposed drawing
Yeah.
as an area.
So do we, Josh was just explaining to me in his position paper, it says between what hours, and he's saying that we are the ones who are gonna determine what those hours are. Is that as part of our application, or after we get the permit, or is that?
No, I would assume that we would, whatever legislation we would bring to you would recommend some hours that you could
That we
change or
could just
modify or
determine.
whatever, yeah.
When is the next DBA meeting?
Are you looking for general or e-board?
You just had something, didn't you?
Yeah.
You just had an executive board at the beginning of this month, yeah.
How often does the executive board?
Once a month, first Tuesday of every month.
Have we ever done a joint meeting with the DBA? In my time, I don't believe we have, but I know we do
With the
joint
DDA.
meetings with the library.
We've had it with the downtown development.
Correct, DDA, yeah.
DDA, that's our
Okay.
connection. We haven't. Doesn't mean we couldn't, but we haven't. Yeah.
It seems like something if we want to hear from more local businesses and kind of have everybody here at the same time, maybe extending an invitation or something like that, or doing a special meeting where we go to their meeting, is a potential path forward.
Are we also only considering the opinions of the local businesses, or are we going to have a forum where public input is, like, we do a survey online or something?
Wow.
Like we've done with the park, redoing the playscape, and something similar to that.
I think any of that's on the table, Commissioner. Anything that you think would be the best way to...
Speaking of what the mayor had previously said about how there are some people who firmly don't.
The way that this has been done in some of the other communities that I've seen it done in is it's the DDA that would make a recommendation to the legislative body, and it would be with a management plan for how like laying out the map of the district and how it would be managed.
Times,
all that stuff, and it's pretty detailed management plan. And then that is then submitted to the legislative body to vote on, and then there's an application process, I believe, to the Liquor Control Commission involved as well, so that goes to the state.
Some people say it takes quite a bit of time, and then if we don't move, we won't have any this year. Is that correct, John?
A lot of the conversations were whether this would help, and part of the biggest reason a lot of people were in favor with this when we had conversations is the ease of special events then. Being able to have alcohol at special events and not having to go to the commission for special permission for those events to have alcohol at them. And so that was their question was, would this be in place in time for this year? And we pretty much have a feeling that it wouldn't be. Someone was throwing out 4 to 6 months, depending on application and such.
So what special events are we talking about?
Well, like the DDA, they're talking about like Summerfest, Fall Fest.
Would we need to do a special license, or?
At that point, if they were going to, if we had the downtown district in place, then they would not need to go through that because they're having alcohol in the downtown.
Like in
they wouldn't have to go through the process of coming to commission like the high school did tonight. They would still have to follow the process to get the permit to have the alcohol served in the street.
So then, I guess I would ask my fellow commission, what is our end goal with this? What is it that we want to
create a vibe in the downtown? Well, you weren't
bring people downtown.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was going to ask Josh if there was any data. Do you have any data from Reed City and Newaygo in terms of demonstrating the benefits?
Just that they've done it and they've had zero. I think it was Dan. You had said that you've not heard anything from their police department. Says like an uptick in crimes and problems. And everyone
the
but in terms of benefits of the business, you don't have that.
I don't have that yet. It's very new.
Still new.
So Reed City, if you talk to the people on the street, they love their social media. It's really popular. Out of that brewery mainly, there's a City Brewing. Yeah. Nothing negative that I heard.
I think that this has the potential to add those crucial third spaces that we are lacking in our society today, where you're allowed to exist in a public setting where some people are maybe imbibing, but others maybe I'm with my sister and she's having a drink and I'm not drinking, but we're out and we are social, and there's an energy of community around us that we don't even have a movie theater anymore. Like where do adults go to congregate, church, and work?
We don't have
we need a place. We need a place for our community members to actually gather and be social together, so they can find common ground and not be so.
Mark, do you need a motion that the city commission supports you guys putting in your application?
No, I think what I'm hearing tonight, Mayor, is you're interested, then we'll keep working on it, and we'll bring you something. Is that fair?
I just have one question to clarify. So the taverns in town will be the ones getting the inspection and the permit, but the businesses that don't have alcohol would not, because people couldn't go in there anyway. Is that correct?
Well, they can't go in there when they have alcohol. They
Right,
finish
that's what I
it, and then they're gonna go in.
Correct, and that's new.
You don't have to
That's not how it was presented to us.
I don't know. I think just the non-profit.
So just the people selling alcohol are getting the permits.
Right.
That's the way we understand it.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I was a little confused.
And if you want, I've got 2 articles here that, one of my colleagues drafted, one in 2020 right when these came out, and then one updating, when the law changed in 2022, if you want to take a look at this. And information about social districts.
We'll keep working on it, man. Well, I was going to bring up the other, but I already did, about
This is between the strategic plan and the master plan.
The master plan is over a period of this, strategic plan is over a period of this.
That's
The
what
master plan is driven by the planning commission, the use of land and so on and so forth. Strategic plan is city goals, looking long-term.
Is there a possibility that it could,
With the super-
yeah, they're two very different documents. Like it's.
One costs a lot more than the other.
The district to appease the public? Or would it be kind of all or nothing?
Well, it's tied to a lot of funding that we have.
Get a whole lot.
It'll probably pay for itself, less than a year now.
You might not have funds necessary. Just not looking good for us either.
We adjourn.
Yes, sir.